Long before Belgium had a name, before France had a border, before England was England, there was a people whom Rome remembered as among the most formidable in Gaul. They lived where the river plains of northern Europe opened toward the Channel and the North Sea. Their world stretched across what is now northern France, Belgium, Luxembourg, parts of the Netherlands, and the lower Rhine. To the south lay the great Celtic societies of Gaul. To the east were Germanic-speaking peoples beyond the Rhine. To the west, across the narrow sea, were communities in southern Britain who shared names, trade, and perhaps blood with them. The Romans called them the Belgi, but that single name hid a complicated world. The Belgi were not one kingdom. They were a cluster of tribes, alliances, rivals, and war leaders, bound together by geography, custom, and the pressure of more powerful neighbours. Some were deeply Celtic in language and culture. Some were influenced by Germanic peoples across the Rhine. Some may have been mixed in ancestry and identity, long before Rome tried to sort them into neat categories. They occupied a frontier zone, and frontier zones rarely produce simple peoples. Their land was not the warm Mediterranean world Rome knew best. It was colder, wetter, and flatter. Forests, marshes, rivers, and fields shaped everyday life. The people of the Belgi raised cattle, grew grain, traded metals and salt, and built fortified settlements on high ground or behind earthworks. Their wealth did not come from marble cities or imperial roads. It came from land, herds, warriors, and control of routes between the continent and Britain. By the 1st century BC, this world was already under pressure. To the south, Roman power had entered Gaul through trade, diplomacy, and conquest. To the east, migration and raiding across the Rhine unsettled old balances. Ambitious chiefs could gain prestige through war, tribute, and alliance. Weakness invited attack. Strength invited suspicion. Then came Julius Caesar. In 58 BC, Caesar began his campaigns in Gaul. At first, his war was presented as defensive. Rome was protecting allies, managing migrations, and stabilizing a dangerous frontier. But Roman intervention rarely remained limited. Each victory created a reason for the next march. Each defeated enemy exposed another threat just beyond the horizon. In 57 BC, Caesar turned north against the Belgi. He claimed they were conspiring against Rome. He also described them as the bravest of the Gauls. His explanation was revealing. The Belgi, he said, were farthest from the luxury and civilization of Romanized provinces. Merchants came to them less often. They were closer to the Germans across the Rhine and had fought them repeatedly. In Caesar's telling, distance from Rome had preserved their toughness. That was praise, but it was also propaganda. Caesar was writing for Romans. A dangerous enemy made a victory more glorious. The Belgi gathered a coalition against him. Tribes such as the Suessiones, Bellovaci, Nervii, Atrebates, Viromandui, and others entered the Roman story as names attached to armies, fortresses, and battlefields. Some submitted quickly, others resisted. Some calculated that alliance with Rome might preserve local power better than hopeless war. The most famous confrontation came against the Nervii. Caesar's army was building camp near the Sabis River when the Nervii and their allies launched a sudden attack. They came out of the woods with speed and discipline, striking before the Romans had fully prepared. For a moment, the legions were in serious danger. Roman units were separated. Officers struggled to form lines. Caesar himself later presented the battle as a near disaster saved by discipline, leadership, and the arrival of reinforcements. The Nervii were eventually crushed. Caesar claimed that their fighting men were nearly annihilated, though ancient numbers are often inflated for dramatic effect. Still, the message was clear. The Belgi could fight Rome hard, but they could not easily defeat Rome's machinery of war. After the campaigns, Northern Gaul did not simply become peaceful Roman territory overnight. Submission was uneven. Revolts followed. Alliances shifted. Some tribes sent hostages. Some paid tribute. Some supplied auxiliary troops to Rome. Others watched for weakness. The Belgi were not erased. They were absorbed. Rome's genius was not only conquest, it was incorporation. Defeated elites could become clients, magistrates, landowners, and eventually Roman citizens. Roads cut through old tribal lands. Towns developed around military, administrative, and commercial centers. Latin entered public life. Roman goods became markers of status. Local gods were matched with Roman gods. Old identities survived, but they changed shape. In time, the region became part of Roman Gaul. The province of Gallia Belgica carried the memory of the Belgae in its name. This was not Belgium in the modern sense. It was a Roman administrative region, far larger and different in meaning. But the name endured because Rome had fixed it onto the map. Across the Channel, the story becomes even more tangled. Ancient writers mention peoples in Britain with names matching tribes of the Belgi, such as the Atrebates. This suggests migration, elite movement, trade networks, or political links between Northern Gaul and southern Britain before the Roman conquest. The sea was not only a barrier, it was a road. Chiefs, merchants, warriors, and ideas crossed it. When Caesar invaded Britain in 55 and 54 BC, he entered a world already connected to Gaul. British leaders understood continental politics. Some had ties to Rome's enemies. Some had relatives, clients, or allies across the water. The Belgae were part of that wider Channel zone, where identity did not stop at a coastline. But like so many ancient peoples, they are difficult to see clearly. Most of what we know about them comes through Roman eyes, especially Caesar's. That means we inherit Roman categories, Roman motives, and Roman exaggerations. Caesar was not an archaeologist. He was a general defending his career. His account tells us much, but it must be handled carefully. Archaeology gives a different kind of evidence: settlements, coins, weapons, burials, imported goods, and patterns of trade. These do not speak as neatly as a written text, but they correct the illusion that ancient peoples were simple blocks on a map. The Belgi were not a pure tribe, race, or nation. They were a frontier civilization of many communities, shaped by exchange, warfare, migration, and political opportunity. Their later legacy is indirect but real. The name Belgica passed into Roman geography. Centuries later, after Rome's Western authority weakened, the region became a meeting ground again. Romanized Gauls, Franks, local elites, Christian bishops, and military rulers all competing inside the ruins of empire. The old tribal world of the Belgae had vanished, but the geography that shaped them remained important. Northern Gaul would continue to be a hinge of European history, between Latin and Germanic worlds, between the continent and Britain, between empire and frontier. Modern Belgium takes its name from this ancient memory, but the connection is symbolic more than direct. The modern nation is a 19th century state. The Belgi were Iron Age peoples living 2,000 years earlier. Still, names matter. They carry echoes. They give later peoples a way to imagine depth beneath their borders. The Belgi stand at the edge of history's light. They were powerful enough for Rome to fear, divided enough for Rome to conquer, and important enough for their name to survive long after their tribes disappeared. They remind us that Europe before Rome was not empty. primitive or waiting to be civilized. It was crowded with societies that had their own politics, economies, rivalries, and ambitions. Rome did not conquer a blank space. It conquered a living world. And in the north, among the forests, rivers, and fortified hilltops of ancient Gaul, one of the hardest worlds it faced belonged to the Belgi,